Footprint course Unit 6, Absorption and Auctioning. This is challenge day 8 of 30. In the following slides we are going to focus on the art of consistency, why it is so vitally important, and how to gain increased consistency. The first and most important, action plan, or the step in the action plan is to understand the power of a consistent approach. Okay, now this is a bit like religion, right? Most people struggle with the concept of religion and the concept of faith simply because they kind of want to see a result almost. They want to see, if I was religious, what would all the great things be like? What would all these wonderful things, appear like? They want tangible almost. Okay, now. It's the same with the art of consistency, right? You have to believe in the actual process. You have to believe and understand that through a consistent approach, ultimately, you're going to get rewarded at the end. Okay, now, you would have only seen this if you've actually ever stuck to a consistent approach. And I'm going to share a really nice example with you tonight, something that I've gone through personally, and hopefully you can, not just sort of take away from it, but also apply this to your own situations. Okay, so the first thing to understanding the power of a consistent approach is to understand the definition of what consistency means. Okay, now obviously I've got the textbook definition here, but the only real sort of parts I actually like to this is I really like this, the lack of deviation and the lack of change. Okay, that is the key success and the key understanding behind consistency is there is no change. You have a plan, you stick to it, you go through it, doesn't matter high or low, it doesn't matter what happens along the way, you stick to it. Okay, and there's no deviation, there's no ifs and buts and changes. That is, if you can stick to those things, a lack of change and a lack of deviation, ultimately you're going to have achieved a consistent approach. Okay, so the second step in order, on the process to getting more consistent, right, is you need to set a big picture goal, right? Now, I'm not talking about, in 1 year's time, I want to be a millionaire, okay? It's a simple goal. And the example I'm going to use, when I move on to the next slide, as I'll show you here, is the goal of a half Ironman, okay? It's no secret, a lot of you that have been following me for a while, I'm training for a half Ironman, and I'm relating to this training I'm going through, to developing a consistent plan, okay? So, set the big picture goal. What is it ultimately? Where do you want to be 12 months from now? Where do you want to be a year from now? What is it that you're trying to achieve? Okay, make that goal nice and simple, nice and objective, nice and easy to understand. What is it? Okay, write it down on a big piece of paper and stick it up on the wall so you know where you're ultimately heading toward. Then, and this is where the key comes in, you need an exact action plan. Okay, now for me with regards to this half Ironman, it's pretty straightforward. I've got a training program. The training program's been developed for me. I simply follow it. I know exactly how long my program is. I know what time I'm committing to the program. I know the place and I know the activity. There's very little I can deviate from this plan. Why? Because it's an exact plan. Right? The plan is simply like following a recipe. It's a step-for-step process. Okay? You need to do the same thing in your trading. You have to set out an exact action plan. Now, that can be an action plan of routine. That can be an action plan of, just simply, being able to do a debrief at the end of every single session for 3 months. Okay? But set an exact action plan with the time, the place, and the activity. And don't allow for any deviations. Remember, the lack of change and the lack of deviation is what consistency is all about. Then, accountability. You need to determine and find some way to make yourself accountable to this exact action plan. Okay, now again, obviously in the example of the Ironman, I've got constant reminders. So every day I get this little buzzing in my email, my phone buzzes and it says, hey, you gotta go train now. Okay, there's no excuses. Now, there's a number of different things you can use. You can use things like alarms. You've got all sorts of apps nowadays, technology. You can have a partner, someone that you're accountable to. Okay, so like with training, like with trading, make yourself accountable in one way or another. Again, guys, what I'm trying to do is relate the two here. I want you to take each one of these, the accountability, the exact plan, the big picture, the understanding, and I want you to apply them to your individual situation. It doesn't matter if you're a trader, it doesn't matter if you're an accountant, it doesn't matter. The steps to become consistent are the same. Then, make sure that you set simple, small, achievable steps every single day. This is the number one, sort of step in the action plan that almost 90% of people fail, including myself. Okay, I've failed by, with action plans probably so many times in my life, I cannot begin to tell you. Right? It's only now that I've been on the other side, that I've seen, an approach that works, that I'm able to relate this to you. Okay, so make sure whatever process action plan you put in place, it is simple. Okay, it's not complicated. It's not, I'm going to do 3 things today and then 1 thing tomorrow, and then, I'll try something. Keep it simple. All right, keep it short every single day, 30 minutes, commit, make the commitment. Okay. And make sure they're achievable steps. Don't overcommit. Right? It's that overcommitment that when you fail to achieve, that you lose motivation, you drop off, and ultimately the action plan, falls away. Okay, so that's the next step. Don't overachieve. You don't want to be an overachiever. Consistency is not about overachievement. Okay, that's a fallacy that, again, you look at, for instance, these YouTube videos and, these sportsmen on the television, you think, wow, these guys are overachievers. I'm going to have to go out and overachieve now to become like them. No. Okay, they followed the exact same action plan that I'm showing you. All right, they started with simple, small, achievable steps. Over time, they were able to overachieve as a result of having an action plan toward consistency. All right, don't overtrain. And again, this is related to training, but this is trading. You do not want to be sitting on a trading floor 14 hours a day. Right? You can only realistically be focused for 7-8 hours a day. Okay, realistically. So just accept that every day you can only do so much. Don't overachieve, don't overtrain, and never overcommit. Okay, don't come out saying, bang, 7 days a week, I'm going to focus on my trading, I'm going to spend an hour every single day, because ultimately it's not going to work in the long run. You need the balance, you need the ability to get away and experience and enjoy life. Okay, don't overachieve, don't overtrain, and don't overcommit. Then create the feedback loop. This is so crucial. You need that feedback loop that's constantly coming to you saying, well done, excellent, you did this. Well done, excellent, you did this. Well done, excellent, you did this. You're progressing, you're progressing, you're progressing. You're achieving, you're achieving, you're achieving. Okay, you need that constant feedback loop that's giving you an overall summary of 1, where you started, 1, where you're headed, and how you're getting there, the steps you're taking. Right? It's that feedback loop that gives you the motivation. It's that feedback loop that's constantly telling you, what, actually, shit, I'm starting to feel a bit of consistency coming. I'm actually starting to feel good about this. Wow, I'm starting to feel strong. I'm starting to feel like this is really working. And that, when you start to feel that little bit of a positive feedback loop, that is what drives you to take it a step up and ultimately, get towards where you want to be. Then set the motivational cues. Now, so crucial along the way. There are going to be points in time where you just cannot be asked. You cannot be asked to be consistent anymore. Why? Because it's tiring. You're not seeing the big picture anymore. You're just not feeling it anymore. Right? So set the motivational cues, whether that's a motivational statement, why I started this in the first place, whether that's, writing about someone that matters to you. Set that motivational cue. Okay? You have to have some motivation for why you're doing what you want to do. Then, another good one is obviously the before and the after. You see a lot of people doing this with regards to weight loss. Take that picture on day 1. Measure yourself on day 1. Make sure you know where you've come, because you never ever want to go back there again. Okay? That's what the motivational cue is about. It's so you can lean on it when things get tough. Then, push the boundaries within each effort. Now, this is the beauty of this little simple step, okay? When you're doing simple, small, achievable steps every day, you start to get this little bit of a feeling, okay? And I've felt this personally in my training. You get this feeling that actually, I'm not doing enough today, but actually you are doing enough. And the fact that you feel that you're not doing enough, all right, that's the time to take a step up and push as hard as you can within those small achievable steps that you're taking every day. Because it's when you step out of that boundary within each one of those efforts that you're experiencing real growth, but you're doing it within a smart action plan. Last one, don't change the game plan. Remember, it's the lack of deviation and the lack of change. Don't change the game plan just because it comes tough, just because suddenly, you know, there's a speed bump in the road, just because things become tough. Don't change the game plan. It doesn't matter if it's week 1, week 2, or week 13. Don't change the plan until you get to the end, because if you can survive and get to the end, you are going to finally, for the first time in your lives, experience consistency. Okay? See the forest amongst the trees. You know, every time you've had a bad day and you can't be asked to do that debrief, say to yourself, if I don't do this, where am I going? Well, I'm going back to square one. Make the commitment, small little steps, and you will ultimately start to develop consistency. Okay, consistency, I will tell you, not just in trading, but in life. Consistency is probably one of the characteristics or the skill sets that very few will ever experience and ever master. You want to be a successful trader, you have to have consistency. Okay.